What's up, guys? Today we're going to be talking about this cheeky bastard and also this cheeky bastard. First things first, the first cheeky bastard is Mr. Lance Prenc. He has done a bunch of work for bands in Australia. Dealer, Alpha Wolf, Gravemind, Void Division, Starve, Dark Matter, Mirrors, Pale Dusk. Very much that style of like being super loud metal. Today I just wanted to talk about how basically I went through all of the free stuff on YouTube that's available about Prenc. His big thing is staged clipping. Stage clipping, pretty much you're using multiple clippers at different points in the mix. It could be on a track, on a bus, on the mix bus, and then on the master. And the whole idea there is that if you're using multiple clippers, you're not going to get those artifacts from, let's say, using one clipper and doing the amount of clipping that you would have done with multiple. Just kind of tightens everything up. You definitely get that loudness from clipping. You could be artistic about how much you push the clipper and what you push into the clippers, and you can kind of get some artistic emphasis on certain elements based on what you push, and then how hard you push it will also determine how much it bites, because there's that fine line with clipping where it starts to sound like shit, but it's not complete shit yet. If you can stay within that zone and maybe you send the snare and it like at a certain point, like let's say it's just like a breakdown or something, you really want the snare to be like raw as fuck and it basically hurting your ears, just send that bitch into the clipper. That being said, let's get into one of the mixes that I applied it to. It's kind of like a scuzz rock, Eagles of Death Metal type of thing. For the main mix bus, obviously a compressor. I got a virtual mix rack loaded up. I like the FG401 because there's actually a threshold on it. What Prenc does actually is, so he uses Logic, I believe. So I had to adapt all of this to Ableton. He will do a send to, that's just like, there's no processing on it, it's just for volume outside of the compression on the mix bus, which is also smart. Sometimes you do that for bass. Maybe you don't want the bass sent into that compressor too hard, or especially cymbals too. Let's go to the drum bus. Got some clipping here, so I'll play you guys this section. So you can see a fair amount of clipping on the drums. Not too much though, just the tops. Before I play you guys this section, I just want to talk about what I was talking about earlier, the creative, how you can be creative with what you send into the clipper. And for this mix, the big thing was the kick. The kick is like the main drum element as opposed to the snare being the main element in a lot of metal songs. Or at least that's how Prenc does it, is he really sends the snare. This, I really send the kick. Snares get a decent amount of clip too. So then after the mix bus, if we look at the master, I always put in ozone first on my master, maybe just an EQ, but the big thing is this clarity. So then we get into the clipping. First clipper, you can see a little bit more clipping there, not too much though. And then basically any saturator will work. Back to it though. So Saturn, I usually do the gentle saturation. There's a couple different settings here. You could do subtle or heavy. All just depends on what you're trying to do. But this will basically drive it a little bit more into another clipper. So let's see how this clipper sounds and how much it's hitting it. So you can see here, I'm taking a fair amount off. There's basically no little blips below that line. This is like the loudest section of the mix. Some of these other sections aren't as loud. You can still have dynamic. You don't have to completely fucking squash it. And it also just depends on the style of your song and the dynamics. But I think it's best to kind of measure out this clipping on the loudest section of your song. The last important part is Pro L2. This is literally the exact settings that Prenc uses. He just adjusts this volume knob here. And the whole point of that is to just not send it too hard into the limiter, but he sends it. I think he said the most that you want is about -4. It's just bass settings on the limiter. No fancy preset. And then you just send it. You can see this one. Oh, there was a blip for -4. In general, it was hitting around -3, which for this genre of music, it doesn't have to be so in your face, as compared to something a little more metal. Now I'm gonna switch over to a project I was working on. Alright, so this is a track that is a little more metal oriented. Virtual mix rack. Again, the FG401. I don't take off too much here, at most like -3 dB. Before I do any master processing, just straight out of the mix bus, I try to hit around peak at like -6. One clipper on one part of the snare. And then for this one, I did do the mix parallel to send a little bit of bass and a little bit of cymbals for some volume outside of the mix compressor. For the master chain, hit a little Pro Q, a little bit EQ shaping. Again, ozone clarity. Not so much on this one, kind of wanted to keep it dirty. Then we get into the clipping, so let's watch this first clipper. You can see that snare is just hitting ridiculously high above everything else, and this is more true to the Prenc method. That's how he does it. He just fucking sends that snare. Also, I think in his videos he uses standard clip, but fuck standard clip. It's like 30 bucks. G clip is free. The interface is simple for us simpletons, you know what I mean? I don't want too much noise. It's a clipper at the end of the day. Like, relax. One thing here is in what I did on this song, and what I think a lot of slam guys do this, whether it's a limiter or a clipper or a compressor, they're just slamming shit into it. No pun intended. But they you'll take an impact or like a sub drop and have that be the primary element that is hitting the clipper, and it just sounds like the mix is exploding. Sounds like a bomb. Second clipper, a little more. Saturator, I use the, so you can see I use the Ableton saturator on this one. This one is a little more aggressive, but you could see this last clipper was just kind of tightening it up, so there's basically no emptiness in between those two lines. With the limiter, -4. So that's about it. You guys go get G-Clip. It's free. It'll completely change the game. Even outside of Prenc, clipping is, you know, kind of overlooked for dynamic control. A lot of people just want to do compression because clipping is so-called bad and you can get artifacts, but that's not the whole truth. There's more to the story. That being said, go check Prenc out. He's got tons of great stuff free on YouTube. Peace.